You've had obviously some time to assess the season as a whole. In
Yeah.
retrospective, what did you learn about your team and what did you see?
Yeah, obviously there's one goal when you go into every season, it's to win a championship. So when you don't reach that goal, it's disappointing, and it's what you're ultimately trying to accomplish, and getting closer to it is maybe even more challenging with getting that close and not getting to the final game and playing it, but. I thought we took a lot of positive steps as a football team for sure. Some of the plans that we had going into, some of the things that we wanted to accomplish and improve on going into the season, I thought that we were successful in doing that. Every football season is going to be different. It's kind of like a book, and there's going to be all sorts of different chapters. Maybe those are just the week in, week out games. It's never going to look exactly how you want it to look. There's ups and downs through the season, but it's a long season. So you'll have all sorts of things that you're going throughout the year. But we had our challenges. Personally, our players had a lot of challenges in their personal lives that a lot of people don't know that they had to go through, and those are things that happen throughout the year that outsiders don't see. But I thought that they really came together as a group. As a team, they were closer than many teams that I've seen in the past, and just really had each other's back, cared about each other. A lot of that had to do with our head coach and his staff, just their messaging. Those guys see the players every single day, have to be a voice in their rooms every single day, and I just thought they did a tremendous job. So, just like most years, you have your ups and downs. To be honest, I was surprised that we started so fast. When you have a new staff, new schemes, new coaches, it's hard in a short training camp to get to a point where you're going to go out and win football games early, and so that was a pleasant surprise. Obviously, that's the plan, is to win the football games, but I felt like we did it very quickly, and it's a credit to the coaches and the work they put into the off season and also in training camp, and the players for their buy-in. And then we went through a lull, and those are tough. For me personally, I want to be real careful not to lump this season with the past two seasons, because I don't think it's fair to the coaching staff, the players. It's a completely different team, completely different staff. So some of the things we accomplished this year were impressive. A first-year head coach, first-year coordinator. That's an impressive feat when you're going against teams that have veteran coaches and they've been around for a while. So really proud of that. Really proud. Corey's everything that we hoped he would be. The message, the love for his players, the love the players have for him. It's really genuine. The players care about him. He cares about them, which is great. And they just kept fighting. And I felt that it was different, me personally, than years before, just from the fact of just kind of how close we were in those games. Play here and there, and I think they would have turned out differently, which in the end kind of came out to be big games. When you're going through the early games, you know that they all count at the end, and so if we had a game or two that would have went differently, we would have been in a different spot in the playoffs. But we're close. Happy that we got the home playoff game. We feel like the more home playoff games, the more chances you have to be successful and win Grey Cups. So happy to have that home game. It wasn't the goal that we were after, but it was a step within that grand plan of winning a championship that we wanted to get. And was happy that we got in front of our home fans and won that game. But ultimately, we came up short, and we're going to use it as a building block. Truly feel like this is an ascending team. I feel like we have young players that are becoming really good players. I feel like we've done a decent job with putting ourselves in position going into the off season. Feel like there's some momentum there, and our players are excited about 2025.
There was a lot of talk this year about foundation and building brick by brick, and the implementation of Coach Mace's vision for character and the culture that he wanted to build here. How do you take that next step forward, analyzing what is here and what may be to come?
Mm-hmm. That's what we're going through now. I mean, there's a whole process once the year ends of how we evaluate. We're evaluating all the players currently and going through the roster, how they fit in. This is Corey's first time being in our building, so everything was new for him, and he saw how everything operates. And Obviously we made changes to our roster going into the year. There were certain things that we wanted to improve on, and certain parts of a football team that we feel is important. We want to protect the quarterback. We want to get after the quarterback. We want to create turnovers, and those are some of the critical things that are important to be successful winning football games. So I think it was a really good start for Corey and his staff. I'm really super excited to spend a full off season with those guys and start this process of next year. But it's not something you can just throw out a culture word, and it just happens. You have to live it every day. And when Corey came into our organization, we echoed that thought through everyone, not just our players, not just our coaches, but to our staff, about how we want to be together and work together and stay positive and work through the tough times. And I think he's done a great job of that. And for some reason, everyone likes him, so that's a good thing. But it's a pleasure to be around Corey and his staff. I can't speak enough about the staff and the job that they did. If you look at the job Mark did on offense and in particular, he had a revolving door there with the injuries we had on offense. And I think I said earlier it wasn't just one position. We were hit hard on the offensive line, which seems like it's been happening for the last number of years, but it also happened at receiver and quarterback and running back. So, for a first-year coordinator to have to go through that and move guys in and out of the lineup and also get those guys prepared to win football games, it was impressive with what he was able to do. So, the idea is you want to have continuity in your roster, and you want to have guys that have played next to each other for a while. Unfortunately, for most of the year, we were kind of running through guys there on offense, but a credit to those guys. Also, credit to our scouting department for the job they did bringing in players.
Has a decision been made surrounding the quarterback position here? Obviously, Trevor Harris, pending free agent, and is it Trevor Harris as we're starting the extension with him?
Yeah, I wasn't. I didn't think you'd ask this question. No, it's early, so we just started the evaluation process. So our year ended, then we went to Grey Cup, and then the coaches turned their evaluations, and like we do every year, and then we have those discussions that are happening this week. So we haven't made a decision on any of the players yet, as far as who's coming back, who we want back. Doesn't mean that we do want them back or we don't want them back. But I will say that Trevor's everything that you see on a regular basis when he speaks. When he's in the huddle, when he's in the locker room, when he's home with his family, he's a true leader. We can't put there's not enough weight that we can put on what he does for the organization. And someone that came here only 2 years ago, the impact that he has on the younger players, his work ethic, his preparation that most people wouldn't see, the amount of time that he spends communicating with Mark, tremendous person. Thought it was just awesome how he persevered going through an injury this year, coming back, playing at that level after coming back from an injury is very impressive. To be a division all-star after missing 6 games is quite impressive, especially in the quarterback position. So we love Trevor. And those are obviously discussions that we'll have moving forward, but nothing to report right now.
You alluded to all the injuries, all the kind of moving parts you had to make throughout the season here. Did this team stay under the salary cap at it, or did you go over it and expect some penalties coming?
It'll be close. The challenges with the salary cap is, a lot of the tough part of the salary cap is really trying to predict how many players you're going to have on injured. Not necessarily on long-term injured, but more short-term injured. So we'll be close, but some of it was out of our control, whether we're going to be over or right to it. But again, it's a lot to do with how many guys are on the one game injured. And we had a lot of injuries that were outside of the 6 weeks. So what I mean by that is they were 3 or 4 week injuries, and so when you have that many guys on one game, it stresses your cap.
Have you had a conversation, or will there be a conversation with the folks in BC about a certain quarterback that is on the trade market? I don't know if you can
Yeah,
Go ahead.
we're not going to talk about any players that are on other teams under contract. If you want to know if I've talked to BC, I have not.
Yeah, sorry, I tried to ask it in a way because I know you can't talk about a specific,
Yeah.
but will you be exploring a conversation?
We'll just wait and see what happens there with whether they reach out or not. I haven't had any conversation with them up until this point. Again, I don't want to talk about players that are under contract with other teams.
I'll just ask another one. Looking at the offensive line, you touched on the injuries, but how do you, when you go through the season like that, I think there was, 15 guys that played. How do you even, can you plan for that? And how do you think you reacted to that, bringing in new guy after new guy after new guy?
You're always trying to stay ahead of, if you have an injury or two, you're always at an injury, one injury ahead of it. So, if you have this guy gets injured, who's your next player? If that guy gets injured, then you have to have the same question of, okay, if he gets injured. I think we went through 6 right tackles this year and maybe 4 or 5 left guards. And so, yeah, it's a challenge. But I would say that we had players in camp that could play multiple positions. And so, because of our history the last number of years with injuries on the O-line, I put a lot of weight in bringing a lot of offensive linemen to camp. This year was, kind of our luck again. Before camp, we had 3 or 4 guys that retired for different reasons that we thought were coming to camp. So we didn't have as many as that we had hoped to bring to camp. But the players that we did bring to camp were all very good players, and we even had some that had to leave for personal reasons in camp that we felt could help our team. But I think it's just really just an attribute to our scouting department and the players that we brought in. I think it's another reason why I think that we're an ascending football team is because the offensive line and the age of some of our offensive linemen that had to play a considerable amount of time. And we had a left tackle that was a first-year player in our league that played all 18 games, and that's pretty impressive and held his own. That's not an easy position to play. Logan Ferlin, his flexibility to be able to move everywhere on the offensive line is just, it's a tribute to him as a player. And then the younger guys that stepped in, we signed Hardrick in the offseason, and unfortunately he had an injury, and we had some guys that stepped in. We also signed some guys during the season that were on the street that came in and helped us. And so, it was a challenge, but we always felt like we had good enough players that we were going to still be able to win the football games, and we didn't feel like there was going to be much drop off when we made those changes, and so we still felt like we were in good shape. But yeah, we had our share of injuries up front, and it's not a position where you really want to move guys around much, but we had to move them quite a bit. And really a credit to our offensive line coach, Edwin Harrison, that just did a great job of preparing these guys. They're 1 week they're on the practice roster, next week they're starting, and then they're moving positions, and to be able to have that, I didn't feel like we had a lot of communication breakdowns, and that's pretty impressive when you go through the season with young players on the offensive line, and there's not communication problems, because again, you're playing against defensive coordinators that are scheming against your young players, and they held their own. So it's definitely something that we're excited about, to see those guys grow together, for them to have a full year in the system and under the new coordinator. So we're excited about that group going forward, and again, I think we're in good position going into the off season with what we're set up with there.
How much of an advantage, or a positive, I guess, is it this year that you have the head coach in place? You don't have to spend those months doing that. You can kind of just get started right away on who you're bringing back, who you want to target, and everything.
Well, I think it's great. I think it's great that you don't have to spend those weeks, months, interviewing and going through staff and trying to request permission and a lot of work that goes into it. So it's nice. Corey had to move here in the middle of the off season last year. His staff had to move here, and we had to finish putting it together a little bit later. So it is a big deal. I think we have an advantage that way, where our staff's in place, and having a full off season together, and also being able to continue to build what we're building, and to have the input from the staff is going to be great.
It's still early, as you mentioned, still decisions to be made. But have any players come to you and said they're not coming back next year yet, retirements, wanting to test free agency or anything, or is that still too early?
I usually don't get many of those, to be honest with you. It's usually positive conversations where they want to be back. They loved it. The exit interviews were all very positive. I feel like we have some momentum going into next year. And I think the players see that. They're excited about it. They're excited, the head coach is in place, the staff's in place. They've worked a full year under their positional coaches. So the majority of the conversations were very positive with me. Even guys that, their year might not have went as well as they had hoped it went. Usually you have those players, kind of talking to you about some things that they felt were challenging, and I didn't get any of that this year. Which is a good thing, and so we're excited. It was more uplifting than anything, and it's tough. There's an empty feeling when the year ends. You're going full speed, then all of a sudden it stops, and everyone's kind of upset by the way the season ended, and you're trying to turn the page and reflect on the year, but also get some momentum going into the next year.
Jeremy, aside from not having to look for a head coach this year, is your mindset any different entering this off season than it would have been a year ago? Is a number of players are re-signed through next year? Is there perhaps a little less work to do on that front?
Well, I feel like the season that we had in particular, we had a lot of players that achieved some great things on our roster, and so I don't feel like there's as much change as in the past couple of years that we had to go through to improve the team. I think that there's a really good foundation there of players and of motivated players, and just the organization as a whole. I think we just have momentum going forward with a really good young coach. Our staff and our football operations department I feel very comfortable with, but so it'll be a little bit different, where we're going to kind of focus, we'll have more time to focus on the football side of it and maybe not so much on the personnel side of it, where we can, strategically plan for free agency a little bit different, where we don't have as many holes that we feel like we need to fill. It's nice feeling comfortable with the offensive line going into the off season, where we feel like, there should be just improvement from a whole, but it truly feels like this is just the start of what's about to come.
Do you see any parallels, maybe from earlier in your time with the Riders, either as a player or assistant GM or GM, where you can look at the team where it is now and say, okay, this reminds me of a certain juncture we were at before?
I think that when you win championships, I feel like there's a build-up to them. I feel like there's a process to them, and they don't just happen. And so for me, it feels like, we're in a position where we can build on where we finished. And I think that the players are feeling the same thing. The coaching staff is. So there's a genuine excitement. I think once you get through losing the last game and you start turning the page, and then start changing your calendar to 2025 and start to set up the off season and the scouting tours and starting to look at the free agents available and stuff. I think there's just optimism moving forward. So it feels like it's the beginning of something special.
You had mentioned, and I apologize if I paraphrase the phrasing wrong, but in free agency, following the free agent period this year, you said, I would be happiest if I didn't have to be that active.
Mm-hmm.
You've obviously assembled something here that is special. What excites you the most about the group that is here right now, whether they be under contract or not moving forward?
Just the fact that they're going to be able to work together and play together for a period of time. I don't think it's a successful situation where you're having to be super active in free agency. That's just my own opinion. I feel like players grow when they play together, for a number of years, and so if you can get the continuity there, of really good players that are playing a number of years together, I think they just grow. It's just like anything. It grows kind of organically where the longer they're together, the bigger bond they have, the closer they feel together, the more they know each other. In my personal experience playing football, when I was around players longer, it meant a little bit more. You started to develop a non-communication where you knew what that person was going to say and do. And so it only helps you when you're in the games. And I felt like that's when we were at our best, when you could count on the guy next to you, you knew what he was going to do. And it really has to do some with the continuity that I talked about of having the same guys around you and playing with them for a number of period of time. So, yeah, I just feel like the continuity's good, and I do believe that if you have good players in house, then you just want to retain them, and hopefully you're not as active in free agency, because it's tough. When you add players in free agency, they're coming in a new building. If you had guys that were leaders on other teams, you have to earn your respect in every building. I always say that it's if you come in demanding respect, sometimes that doesn't work out, where you have to kind of earn the respect. And we brought guys like with Thurman and Hardrick that were leaders of their team, that were new into the locker room, and you've got to figure out the guys around you, and you got to earn their respect. And I thought those guys did a really good job at it, but it's nice to know that they're in the building, and hopefully you can have them back, and you can build on what we did this year.
How do you view retention? For example, if you bring in a coach, you obviously are bringing in a quality person that obviously wants to take a next step, so maybe they get contacted by another team. Same with players. How do you view that? Is it bittersweet knowing that you've allowed them to grow and accomplish things, to be noticed by others?
It's something that we actually that I strive for. So when I hire somebody and they have aspirations and goals, that's ultimately I take pride in that. So some people maybe can be a little bit more selfish, saying that they don't ever want to lose somebody that's doing a good job. But I truly, if you look at the teams that are super successful, they constantly lose people, and because you're having success, that's the reason for it. So if we have that problem, that's a good problem to have. And so how we handle it is we want what's best for whether it's a player, a coach, staff. We want what's best for them, and we want them to take the opportunities. If they feel like there's a better opportunity or an opportunity to grow, then that's something that we would encourage them to do. Obviously, we don't want to lose them because we hired them, and we feel like they're very good and they're good for our organization and they help us win football games. But we won't hold them back. In fact, we'll try to help them in any way we can to achieve the goals they want. I feel like that environment is conducive to success, and I feel like when people are in your organization, know that you've got their back and you want them to do well personally. I think that that's a good environment, and people want to work here and play here if you have that. I always feel like you do something good, it usually comes back in weird ways.